had a lot of discussion and a lot of action taken towards the implementation of its vision. And perhaps for the very first time, foundational learning has been at the heart of a policy of such magnitude. And perhaps that is why CBSE has chosen foundational literacy and numeracy as the crowning topic of our seminar today, which marks the beginning of India's G20 presidency. So I'd like to ask our esteemed panelists here today, what transformative changes do you envision coming in with this emphasis on foundational literacy and numeracy? We can begin with Dr. Bali.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And it's indeed an honor and wonderful to be a part of this discussion here in DPS Nacharam. NEP has been with us earlier as well, but the challenge which we faced over time was the execution of the NEP in India. A lot of educators and head of schools were not aware of the NEP. Now what they have done is they have brought in the elementary education into the formal education sector, which was not formal earlier. The mother tongue and the regional language has been given equal importance. I think it is more holistic in nature. It covers more aspects which will contribute in a child's overall growth and enhanced learning. So these are some of the takeaways I feel are very important when it comes to the NEP now.
Yeah, good afternoon and hello friends. Very nice to meet you all after so many years, and I find so many new faces as principals here, and few I could relate with them. And yes, NEP or FLN is not something new. You remember in 90s, we had one thing, which is each one teach one. That is nothing but FLN. You know, we wanted to see that each and every child must be ready with 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. That was, we really vigorously took it forward through our children. We told our children, you go home and do this exercise with your maidservants' children, with your, whosoever you come across. Make them literates. But now, this mission is, there is a learning gap. There is a big gap. Why there are so many dropouts to the school when they come to first class? They join the first class, they are not able to continue in the classes because for them what they do in the classes is like Greek and Latin, because they are not being taken care at their preschool levels. Now, here, whosoever we have gathered here, we are all progressive schools, sir. We don't come across this kind of problem very often. Though in our classes, we have 2-3 children who have, some children, they have reading difficulties, whereas orally they are too good. But they have reading difficulties. Some children extremely well orally, very smart, running around in the class. But when it comes to writing, he doesn't want to write. That is the problem. So this kind of problem we have. Okay, that of course, that is why CBSE is insisting on to have the special educators in the schools, as well as counselors for those who have emotional problems and all. But here the target group are our, very economically and socially backward children who cannot reach school, Parents are not aware that their children have to go to school. They are many. See, they are the target group. It is very often insisted that communities, the panchayats, the rural, we come across them in the rural pockets as well as in the city. Even that last rag picker has to come to school. That is the idea. That is the mission. So we have to fulfill this mission. So each one of us take charge of one child and say, I will do it with my heart. I am sure we can fulfill this mission. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for giving this opportunity. I feel actually humbled sitting with two big doyens of education who have run very prestigious educational institutions. So, from a practitioner's perspective, or if I look at it from a perspective of what does it mean as a change from a government or a strategic level, it was earlier the early year education, ECCE, was under the Women and Child Welfare Department, WCD. So you had one portion which was being looked at in a different manner, and of course the Education Ministry was looking at it from one manner. And of course in most of systems, there is a passing of the buck. So if you say, why are students not employable getting out of colleges? You would say, hey, you know what? They didn't do well in their 12th. We didn't get the good quality. And then you go back and ask them what went wrong, and they pass it on to saying the secondary school was not good enough, and so it would go to middle school, and then it would go to primary, and then there it would stop because grade 1. Now this is a big move that I see, but it will take a longer time for us because Indian economy and the way things get implemented, so we are like an elephant. Even if it has to turn, it takes like 5 years for us to see results. So that is one thing, but for us, people going into private schools where we've got access to very good resources, the change might not be very big, but as ma'am said here, when we are talking about kids who don't have access to that form of education, so it could be a very, very big fundamental changes. The second thing is let's say from an engineering perspective, when we build buildings, we say how high a building is dependent on the foundation of it, right? And usually the foundation is not visible to the bare eye, it's all below the ground. And fundamentally, if we go into that, so there's one of these reports which I was reading, which said the first 1,000 days, which is from conception to the second year, when a child becomes 2-year-old, those 1,000 days, you invest $1 or you invest a rupee, the return is 5 times more than any rupee invested later on, which means giving proper nutrition, giving proper mental space for the mother when she is expecting, to following the right practices after the child is born. That becomes the fundamental period in which interventions being made at a large level make a huge difference. Of course, I'm sure there are initiatives happening there, and then the second leg adds up, which is the ECCE, where if they are correctly groomed so that they are confident and they are school ready, as we all say. I think that could be a very big move, and I congratulate, or I am hopeful that ECC and including it will make a big difference.
I think very well said, and I think what Sita Kiran ma'am said reminded me of a very thought-provoking quote that I heard. Children who fall behind get left behind, and children who fall behind get left behind. And I think this is a question of access to quality early childhood education and care. And this is something that is, of course, quite central to the NEP, but my question would be, how well do you think the NEP addresses this question of access to quality ECCE? And can you think of any specific ideas that can be implemented within the school as well, which can address this question? Ma'am, we'll start with you for this.
This, I can speak out of my own experience. Okay? I am not boasting of myself. My schools are, sir, all in the rural pockets. I am from DAV, retired from DAV. Our schools are located in the rural pockets where there are river valley projects. Where do you find? In the agency areas where civilians are not allowed. It is only the tribals stay there. Whereas there will be a unit of electricity power generation corporation there and a gated community there. For them, we run the school and make the school into inclusive school and open it to the community around this project or the unit. And then, who are those children? First generation going to a school like DAV, English medium school, and then, sir, they come out, and what they become is, they land up in the corporate world, they land up in US, they are police officers, they are trained by the government of Telangana for IAS officers. This is what they become. How does it become? We can make them first generation English medium school. When they first come, the whole classroom will be stinking because they don't bathe. There is no culture, okay? The hair is full of oil. They don't even change their dresses. But then we are committed to the cause. Me personally was so convinced. I was not ready to take up one of the schools. I am citing as an example. It is about 130 kilometers from city. This is an extension of Nagarjun Sagar Dam, where the water is diverted to a penstock. There is a well, and through penstock, the water is reverse sent back to another reservoir. And this is only the Lambada belt. Only Lambada, their tandas are there. And 98% of our children are Lambada children. And these children, there was no transport facility. There was no telephone, no road, leave alone cell phones working there. I'm talking about, 2006. I said, when the CMD of AP Genco called me and said, ma'am, you are from Arya Samaj, you are here to serve. You have to do. I said, sir, when all these facilities are there, how do we go there, reach there? How do I convince the teachers to stay there? But then he said, no ma'am, once you visit, once you see. And then when I first day went there, I saw the aspirations in the parents, they were squatting and sitting like this with eager eyes that the school is going to be opened here. That convinced me, and then I started that school. And today, this is a very vibrant school. I'm talking about that inspector, sub-inspector, IAS officer, doctors, engineers, so everybody become. Now, we find more children in engineering colleges than in university. Okay, so that is why I'm not taking that name. It is possible when we are committed to the cause. Commitment is very important. And then we are concerned. When you are concerned about those children, you will definitely, things will happen. And then when you care for those children, you should see the way those teachers care for those children. The way they care for their children. You know, they lift them, they put them here, they make them do everything. Their language is lambada. But then still, that is what NEP says. You must get into the home language of the children and see that this, you know, the reading, writing, and then speaking, and the numeracy, care has to be taken, going to their home language and then lift them up. To that extent, we have to go back. This is what we do, and then these children are not less intelligent. They are remarkably intelligent children, and then they are like a white canvas, you know. You spread any color, they just absorb. They just absorb. That is the motivation for us. And today we have succeeded, and we have about 32 schools of this time. And we have schools in all those Naxalite belts. You know, you have never heard of. Vanku Delhi is a place, it is beyond the end of Andhra Pradesh towards Odisha, where we have to, this side of the river is Andhra, the other side is Odisha. The land belongs to Odisha. The project is managed by Andhra Pradesh. We run schools there. And that is a Pakka belt, Naxalite belt. Like this, there are quite a few. I don't want to say. Why I want to tell this story is, we should not, it is all in our mind, you know. We should not screw our mind and say, these children don't come to school, what can we do? No. We have to go home and bring them to school. Forget that they have parents at home. The entire responsibility should be on our shoulders. This commitment happens when we take care of our teachers. That is very important. That is the secret of my success. My teachers, believe me, how many of you are ready to go to this kind of places? None of, we don't even ask the city people to go and settle there. We pick up teachers from there only and train them continuously. Continuous training. Whether CBSE insists or not, we have our own training modules, and then we train the teachers, motivate them, empower them, pay them the best salary. Today, these teachers come from, you know, very mediocre, low middle class. But now, in front of their quarters, everybody has a four-wheeler, because they don't have city like Hyderabad and malls to go for shopping. They save their money, they live a happy life with their children and school children, and then they have a good life. So, this is all interlinked. How we care for the teacher. That is why NEP says there will be continuous and comprehensive training program will be given to the teachers. The teachers will be best paid, pre-primary teachers. The best teachers will be picked up. They will be paid. They will be given every infrastructure facilities. And then we will succeed in this. That is the mission of NEP, to uplift these children. And I am ready to serve here. If there are anyone representing from the government of Telangana Education Department here, I am a retired employee. I am ready to go and help in one of the government schools. I am sorry to say I am taking so much time. Hereafter, don't ask me to speak. I am telling you, my servant's daughter, she has come to 5th class. She is studying in a government school, primary school. Now, the very second day, she has been appointed as the school captain. Now, 4th class, when she had the exams, she showed me the progress report. She has all the good grades. Then I said, you bring your book. Let me see what is your book, what kind of books. I said, you read this. She doesn't know to read 3-letter words or 4-letter words. She doesn't know to read. I said, how did you write the exam then? Hamara teachers to madad karte. This is nothing but cheating. And I'm sorry to say, government teachers are the best brains. Best ones are selected, but then they don't do what they have to do for the children. I felt very sorry for the child. Innocent children, and she says, teachers madad karte. So they get the grade, and she doesn't know to read, she has come to 5th class. So here we need intervention. Here we need, as a social worker, we have to intervene through the department and see that we motivate the teachers and make them understand why we have to work for those children. We have to work for them. Then only all of us can say that we are a developed country. If a boy who wants to become a delivery boy, if he cannot read, can he deliver things? So he needs to read. So when we make the children who are able to read with comprehension, write, and do some operations in mathematics, the basics of mathematics, if it is done at the primary level, when they come to, the 5th class, 6th class, children will be naturally motivated to go to school. Because I know to read, I know to write, I know to do mathematics, the simple division, addition, subtraction. So they will be motivated. Besides that, the government is ready to provide even not only midday meal, the nutritious breakfast and uniform, books, all the facilities will be provided. Only thing is, we as teachers have to be extremely motivated and committed to the cause to lift the children. That is why earlier speaker, Professor Roy Madam said, you teachers are very, very important. Yeah, we teachers make the difference. Make or mar, we say, no, it is the we teachers. So let us be those making teachers. I'm sorry I took a lot of time.
It was a very passionate address from your very experience of the past 40 years that we're getting to hear these insights. And I think what the NEP does is it takes the learning to the students by localizing it. But it also talks about technological integration to a great degree. This is for schools, for students, and for teachers as well. The teacher resources have been integrated with technology to a great extent. So I think, what do you think would be the mindset that maybe teachers can inculcate within themselves to develop students holistically? Because holistic development is something that is a huge part of the NEP. So what do you think would be the correct, the mindset that teachers can aspire to develop? Dr. Bali, we'll begin with you.
Well, thank you so much. It's very important for us to understand the revolutionary changes which are happening in the NEP now. We as a society and parents in particular have to change the mindset to begin with. The professions which our children are going to get into 5 years down the line, forget about the ones who are getting into elementary years, they don't exist today. We are not aware of those professions. So more than just the technological aspect, we have to develop these children to something which is which is universal to the human generations over time. They need to be emotionally stable. They need to be critical thinkers. They need to be creative in their ideas so that the kind of problems the world is going to throw at them tomorrow, they are able to maneuver their way around it. They are able to understand and face those problems very well. And as Sir said, the foundation has to be strong. So if you nurture your children well when they are young, if you catch them early and then help them grow, they become better citizens, they become better professionals, and they become emotionally stable human beings. And they can face any challenge as well. Even the research supports that. Children till the age of 8, 9, 10 can pick up multiple languages. The reading habit, if is not developed till the age of 12, it's very difficult to develop reading afterwards. So I think everything, whether it is music, whether it is dance, whether it is sports, a little bit of technology, a lot of reading is ideal for these young children. Technology I'm not a big supporter of, personally. I think, and research says that as well, that technological intervention to a child should be exposed at the age of 12, not before that. And and these days you see parents giving mobile phones to the child and feeding them on the dining table is another exposure of technology. So I think education needs to look in a more holistic approach, and that's what NEP addresses now, multilingual approach, talks about co-curricular, extracurricular activities from early years on. So I think the future looks bright with NEP, but we as society as a whole also needs to change our mindset.
The goals of the NEP by 2026-27, the NEP aims to achieve universal foundational literacy and numeracy. So do you envision any challenges that schools might face in implementing this goal?
I think the only challenge which I see is the mindset of the school leaders, because the document in itself cannot deliver. It has to be delivered by the stakeholders. So it's very important that the school leaders who are going to lead that document into its execution have an open mind. They read NEP through and through. They are aware what is expected. And most importantly, the educators need to be well connected with each other and open to ideas. I think that's the only challenge I face and I see. In the past as well, NEP was very good document, but it never got executed on the ground. So I think the only challenge will be from the desk, the document is executed on the ground. That transition needs to be handled carefully.
Creativity is something that all our speakers today have spoken about, and even Professor Roy has mentioned. And creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship particularly are the cornerstones of development in the Industry 4.0 era. So how can educators and schools and allied stakeholders foster a culture of innovation in the day-to-day activities of the students? And Mr. Sharat, let's begin with you for that question.
Yeah, thanks. So no creativity there. But in terms of, I think that's one of the fundamental challenges we as a country, as a bunch of citizens we face, because when it comes to doing stuff or finding solutions for our own problems, we need lots of people who are thinking for our own problems which are getting generated. One of the examples which comes to my mind is, let's take an example of who is a good student, because you also spoke about assessing quality. So a typical thing maybe when some of us were growing up was being obedient, being respectful, following instructions, being nice to teachers especially, or when teachers are paying attention, being extra nice. But it's okay to cut corners when teacher is not observing. Some of us go through shortcuts, some of us, go through that. But we are all, to an extent, it's like being conditioned on what is being good. So we go through the whole system and then we come out and then there's this new thing called, can you not think of a creative solution for this? Don't tell me all the problems. I'm sure as leaders you would say, don't come with problems to me. Tell me 2 or 3 solutions and then only enter my room. But if somebody is never asked to do that, whole of 12 or 15, 16 years of education, and suddenly they are asked, hey, you come with the solution first and then talk, that's being unfair, right? So it means individually as teachers, as practitioners, we need to appreciate what is that we want, because we are assessing quality day in, day out. I'm sure, getting 60% marks in 70s, 80s was brilliant. Now getting even 95 is like, oh, you are like 5 percentile less, or you didn't get a centum. Is that quality, has quality improved in last 15 years, 30 years? I don't think so. It's only the metric scale that we are trying to use. We are just changing it maybe for convenience. But here what's very important is to be flexible, to be okay with, in the classroom, being okay with having no solution or having no answer to a question. How many of us can be okay in the classroom when a student asks, ma'am, how do we measure, something, how big is this hall, or maybe it's okay to say, I don't know, let's figure out. But we are all trained to first, push our authority saying, I know everything, so, better I'll tell. So that's something which we need to change, because creativity, one of the basic things is to accept failure. But are we all ready to do that? If we are ready to accept, and it's the method and discipline of trying out things. It doesn't come out, go for a creativity course for, 3 months, or again have a subject on creativity and you'll end up being creative. I think the opportunity is there right through ingrained in when they are learning things. When they're going through the courses, they're going through that. But we as teachers are trying to inject problems for which solutions have to be thought out. And most of the times, there are wonderful teachers who come back with creative solutions. One creative solution which I would share, which is a tongue-in-cheek, I'm sure, not to be quoted anywhere else. So there's a government school project that we are doing in again, this Bhadrachalam ITDA Tanda. So a remote place. So of course it's called punishment posting for teachers. And because we are doing this project, the collector said, hey, you guys like sitting in AC classrooms or AC offices. You don't know what is the difficulty out there. We said, okay, sir, we'll learn maybe. So we went in the bus, reached the school, and it was really difficult because the last 2 kilometers was not motorable road. The teacher also had to either walk down or a two-wheeler max would go. And in the moment we reached the school, kids were there and kids came out running. And so we said, okay, where is your teacher? Teacher just went now only. This was like 9:15 that we reached there. Teacher just went now. So we said, okay, maybe the teacher would have gone somewhere. So we were waiting. We said, okay, what are you learning? What are you doing? There were kids of all the classes. So grade 1 to 5 sitting in the same, one classroom school. Of course, the students were all told that if anyone comes from outside, you have to inform that the teacher has just stepped outside. So they did their part of the, duty well. But the moment we started interacting with the students, one of the things we found out were slightly older students who are good in reading. They're helping out the, younger children who are just making them comfortable. A kid who was relatively younger, who looked really short, was teaching the other, bigger looking kids something in math. So what that school with 20 or 25 odd kids was doing was, there's learning which was happening from peers. And that's one of the most strongest forms of learning. A lot of times we take entire thing on our head saying, I'm a teacher, I'm responsible for all these 35 students. It's a much easier problem if we say it's a collective responsibility for all of us. And there are some kids who are really good on, in some things, and you say, hey, why don't you help us out? But that means we have to come down and say, hey, this is a solution that we are collectively trying to find out for the problem in this context. Every year we get different types of children. So it gets an exciting problem if you look at it that way. If you want to deliver things, then it's the same monotonous thing that we have to deliver year after year. So I think that's something which I feel could be a way in which most of the practitioners can look at it.
I think that's very interesting, and one thing that particularly we all might notice at DPS Nacharam as well is that students have a lot of space to express their creativity. The hallways are colored and they're all full of crafts and different work done by the students. Today the folders that we got also looks like they're made by the students themselves, and I think one of the ways of addressing this outside the classroom as well is to encourage creative expression among students. Ma'am, what are some other tools that we can employ within the classroom?
Yeah, it is, we should not believe that I am the teacher, when I teach only children will learn. No, that we have to keep it aside now. We have to focus on learning, not on teaching. No more of chalk and talk and all. See, trust your children, they can be better presenters. We can ask our children to make presentations. They can take up micro teaching. You give them a concept and say, come prepared, tomorrow you are going to do. One set of children, each different concepts of the chapter. They will be making the presentation and others will be probing questions. And you are there to moderate everything. Like, the learning takes place in a play way. Children don't know that we are learning, but they are learning a lot. So we can evolve all these methodologies and make the children do. And I am a believer, that please don't give notes to children. The textbook is written to the level of the child, not for you and me, for the teacher. Teacher has to refer from the library. The textbook is for the child. You ask to put the children, cooperative learning, put the children to groups and say, from this page to this page, you evolve 10 questions. Let them frame questions. While they frame questions, they have to read, understand, and frame the question. Lot of discussion take place when the 5 heads are there. They evolve questions. Let one present and others interact. See how the learning takes place. So we can evolve different strategies to make the children learn. What we have to do is we have to empower children to learn. We have to also give them question bank and say, solve this question, children. I am not giving you the punishment of writing notes, but you have to solve these questions and submit it to me. And then make let us say there are some good children who can comprehend better and write really well. They will read the answer and the children themselves have to check their answers, whether what I wrote is right or not, then correct it. See, these are all the methodologies through which, we are empowering them to learn, and they are not having that monotony of you are listening, we are talking. I know you are fuming there. It is boiler like, I feel. Okay, but then it is very nice. So we must think like that. See, the children, they should be active learners in the class. the active participation, then they will be very agile and very willing to learn what they have to learn like. When we empower them to learn like this, cracking CBSE exam is not a big deal. Now it is all value point. Within that booklet, if you give the value points, you will score centums. The children can score. That is the way it is now. So we have to evolve. But principal ma'ams and sirs, you have to give that freedom to the teachers. You have to empower your teachers to trust your teachers. Okay? And then they have to maintain a record, anecdotal record of all this, a cumulative record of the activities that they do. It is not that I have done. No. Everything should be very organized. When they do this, that is another different way of learning. And that the children will definitely enjoy. And then always remember to bring the children before the mic and make them speak. Then, their personalities come out. And when they go to the boardroom for interview, they will never be nervous because their personalities come out when they speak before the mic. I was a very shy girl as a school student. I wouldn't imagine sitting on a stage like this and speaking. Such a shy girl. Accidentally I joined B.Ed, then did M.Ed, became a lecturer. But today, I have come this far. Okay? So, I did not know, accidentally. There, I reversed it. I saw to that, in my school where I was the principal before retirement, 4,000 and odd children must come before the mic one day or the other and speak in the morning assembly. For me, morning assembly is my puja, Maha Puja. Doesn't matter, one period goes. But what materials children bring, what thoughts they bring, the way they communicate, the way they speak, deliver, it's a learning experience for us. And those children will never look back. And they are the ones who come back and say, ma'am, what I am today because of the school. The credit, they come back and give to you, not to the college. They say because of school. Understood? So these are all the things, something, we must remember and do and make it a joyful exercise, joyful experience for children. They should love to run to the school and walk back home. That is the kind of environment we have to create in our schools. That's all I have to say. Yeah, thank you.
Right. So a confident student today leads to a very important member of India's workforce tomorrow. India is projected to have one of the youngest workforces in the world very soon. So do you think that perhaps the way that NEP is shaping up to be and it's, when it is implemented accurately and to the fullest extent, can we see a transformational change within India's workforce as well? Dr. Bali?
Can you please repeat your question? I'm so sorry.
Do we see that India's workforce might undergo a transformational change after the implementation of the NEP to its fullest extent?
See, as I answered you earlier as well, that fundamentally our thought process is not on the right track. We are again looking at the end. We don't have to look at the end, we have to look at the journey. As I said, the professions in coming times don't exist today. But there are certain things which have worked for human beings over generations. That is critical thinking, creativity, communication, and collaboration. I think we need to work on that. If we work on that, we will have a society of professionals who will look for opportunity in any adversity. I think that is what we need to look at, rather than what Britishers used to do for us. They used to look towards us as their workforce. I'm looking at skilled and probably well-aware generations in times to come who will convert these opportunities into realities and who will create challenges into opportunities. I think that is something which NEP definitely can deliver, provided educators or the stakeholders execute it on the ground the way it is expected to.
Mr. Sharath, any thoughts on that?
As far as the NEP, some specific mentions which I saw, there was a specific emphasis on kids being as close to reality as possible. So what does that mean? It meant internships being an important part. So a student of course, the examples were given in middle school and high school, so maybe I'll quote from those. So if a child has to, serve or understand about values, an example given was spend a day in a hospital and actually serve the people who are there, which would have more weight than, doing some exercise sitting in the close comfort of home or in school. Similarly, there are aspects where they said, go and spend time in factories. Even that was there. Go and visit and see what's happening. Now, that's interesting example, because if we stay connected to what's happening in and around us, that also to an extent, as sir mentioned, that the new jobs that we are talking about of the future, it can't work in silos, like be closed in a school classroom for 12 years and then suddenly you come out and say, hey, these are these jobs now, are you ready for it? But we are all connected, right? So there's also emphasis of higher educational institutions being in touch with schools. So what does that mean? So it's an indirect way of trying to pass on, though very difficult to implement. I'm sure there would be many reasons, dozen reasons for us to not do it. But what I feel is, as ma'am also said, it's very important to get the crux of the intent of what they're trying to do. They're trying to ensure that we're not working in a silo, frog in a well, you do your stuff and then suddenly, some magic is going to happen. Be connected, be more realistic. The experiences around need not be limited to textbooks. So it could be field visits, it could be experiences, or encouraging them to go and spend time and put efforts outside the traditional forms. So if that happens, I think that just multiplies the ways in which kids could learn. Vis-a-vis we saying chalk and talk or a book and some lecture or showing some videos, these could only be the pedagogies available.
Right, so a shift towards skill-based and experiential learning would be something. Great, thank you so much. We'd like to now open the floor for any questions. We have time for about 1 to 2 questions, if that's okay. So are there any questions in the crowd? Any teachers, principals, anyone who would like to ask us any questions? This is a wonderful opportunity to share any thoughts that you have, anything that you might be nervous about, any advice you'd like to ask our esteemed panel. Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Good afternoon. I would like to ask that what would be can we involve the parents and the families in, when we are talking about early child care and the fundamental means this I'm asking, ma'am, that what would be the role of parents? Should we involve the parents when we are talking about this age of 3 to 8 years? There's a lot of important, means role of parents should also be discussed when we are talking about this age group. Because at this age, the child is having a lot of attachment, spends a lot of time with the parent. So should we bring in parents also in this? Should we organize some training for them so that they can also be there? Like I'm sure sir would be aware that there are some teaching materials, toys which I have been familiar. Some schools we are also using. So there should be some involvement of parent which can be there.
No doubt. These schools who helped the children to learn during those 2 years of COVID, who took charge of children? It was the parents. In city schools, I remember, it was the parents that too at this level, grassroots level children, that is pre-primary children, you had the screen time about 45 minutes. The rest of the things, it is the mother who took care of the children. You know, that is what happened. So they are one of